Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Hi, this is Gracie Howells with Pilma. Let's hit pause for just a second on this episode because I have to tell you about this event that every forward-thinking PI firm should have on their calendar this January. It's the AI for PI Expo in Orlando, Florida, January 15th through 17th. This is the very first conference of its kind dedicated entirely to showing personal injury firms how to harness AI to save time, cut costs, and grow faster. You'll get hands-on demos, practical training, and access to the best AI solutions built for law firms. Reserve your spot now at pilma.org/AI for PI Expo via the link in the show notes.
Hey, it's Jenna, Membership Growth Advisor with Pilma. If you're serious about growing your law firm this year, don't miss your chance to book a free law firm growth strategy session with me. We'll break down what's holding you back, identify the biggest opportunities in your firm, and map out the next steps to accelerate your growth. No pressure, just real strategy and direction tailored to you. Click the link in the show notes to schedule your free session.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have David Klein with ConsulTV. Welcome aboard, David.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what is ConsulTV?
Happy to do it. So ConsulTV, we're a full-service demand-side platform. We specialize really in helping law firms that are investing in TV, and as more and more viewers are cutting the cord and they're watching all these streaming platforms, we're helping those law firms and their agencies move from that linear world of TV distribution onto streaming. So that's what ConsulTV does. I've been in the marketing world probably a little bit too long, over 20 years. I started out in the PPC and SEO space and did that for 15 years and worked with a lot of law firms. And then about 5 years ago, kind of made the shift over towards the streaming TV space and ConsulTV.
Yeah. I know a lot of our listeners, viewers, some of them have tried streaming, and just to be honest with you, David, it didn't work. I've heard them talk about it in masterminds, and then I hear some of them that says it does work. So evidently some people doing it right, some people doing it wrong. I don't know. But the one thing I read in the Wall Street Journal that for the first time, I think it was a New York market, they were just talking about that there was more people streaming and watching regular TV, cable and broadcast. There was more people, like it was like 53 to 47, 56 to 40. I'm not sure, but I just remember reading that and I said, damn. They said that was like, and we've seen it kind of grow. So what do you think the reason is? Is it just New York or is it everywhere?
Oh, it's everywhere, and your numbers are exactly right, Ken. If you want to, any of your listeners want to just go to just search Nielsen Gauge. It's a public domain. It's easy to find. It'll just pop right up, and it's a great website because it shows that shift and it confirms the numbers that you just said, the 53 to 47. In addition to that, if you scroll down a little bit, you can even see the progression over the last months and years and all the methodology. You can geek out on it, but it's out there. I mean, Nielsen, of course, is the most known measurement tool of how people are consuming TV. So they've been doing it for a long time. So your numbers are absolutely correct. And then what you said before, I hear the same thing in my conversations with law firms and with their agencies, that they've tried streaming and it didn't work, and we unfortunately we hear that, and just like so many things in life, it's life is more complicated. It gets more complicated every day. And I will say one trend that is very noticeable, and in a lot of ways it's a good thing, because 2 or 3 years ago a lot of the streaming TV was being placed through local TV stations. And listen, it's the same thing as, you don't buy your PPC from your local TV station because they're not experts in PPC. They're experts in distributing linear TV schedules. And then the same could be said for streaming TV, even though it's still to the end consumer, it's the exact same communication. It's a 30-second spot, but the way that it's distributed and measured is extremely different. So, there's just kind of a lack of expertise. But the big shift, I've seen CPMs come down as I'm talking with clients. I get a lot of reports, and we do a lot of side by side comparisons as a big part of our process. And the good news is that CPMs have come down. The bad news is that you're still seeing a publisher distribution where there's a lot of inventory being put on less expensive publishers like Pluto and Tubi. Those are referred to as fast publishers, free ad supported publishers. So are they bad? No, they're absolutely not bad. We love Tubi and Pluto, but the point is you need to be across all the different publishers. Why? Because that's where your viewers are. So the point is, a lot of times you'll see people, they'll say, oh, well, we've got a really good CPM. The majority of their impressions are being served on low cost inventory. So the frequency is really high. They're not getting exposure on some of the other publishers. Of course, for the TV station and the people running those campaigns, it's more margin because it costs less to be on Tubi than it does on Hulu. But I don't want to, yeah, I would say it's common. I mean, I see it a lot.
And for listeners that don't know what CPM is, that's cost per thousand viewers, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's it. And it's like you can't really look at what the ad costs. You got to look at what the cost per thousand is. I think really, because I used to, when I was buying TV, Oprah Winfrey might cost $300, whereas I could get Andy Griffith for $50. And the deal say, well, I'll just buy a bunch of Andy Griffith. But the deal is, I might be getting a tenth of the viewers for an eighth of the cost. So you got to compare apples to apples and oranges and oranges. This is a question I got for you because I was thinking about this. I was started TV in '96. And first I just did TV. The 4 stations. The deal was, because we're PI lawyers, it's not like you can go in and say, I want this demographic. Sometimes you can. I mean, like I used to do a demographic of like 18 to 65 or something. I can't remember. I don't know. Is streaming like that where you can buy it based on the demographics, or is it just viewers, period?
No, that's a great question. And it's demographics and much more. So what happens in the streaming world is that because we're serving the ads to the individual IP address, we all have, whether we like it or not, we all have what's referred to as an infograph. So if you have a checking account, if you rent a home, if you own a home, if you drive a car, if you register your car, I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek here because these are all activities that everybody in the United States does. If you live in the modern world, you have to do these things. Well, everything that I just mentioned, those are all packaged, anonymized, and sold as what we refer to as data bits. So in the streaming TV world, you can certainly look at age of the viewers in the household, and all of these data bits are appended to an individual IP address. So for example, if we do a lot of campaigns for motorcycle owners. This is a really good example because with a motorcycle owner, if they have a motorcycle that they've registered, that's registered to their household, we can serve ads just to households that have motorcycles registered to that household. If you have Spanish speaking ads and you want to serve ads to those Spanish speakers, then we have the data bits where we've identified households where the first language in the household is Spanish. A lot of the PI lawyers that we work with, they may run workers' comp campaigns. So if we want to serve ads to folks that have more in blue collar workers and industries, we can sort that out. And then in the MVA space is a little bit trickier because motor vehicle accidents is the core of most personal injury law firms. And I'll just kind of pull the blanket off the horse and let you know what we do is we want to serve ads to folks that are middle income and lower, people that have poor credit scores, people that are daily commuters. Uber and Lyft drivers are also a data bit that we typically include. And the reason is just really simple. Those are folks that probably don't have lawyers in their social circle, and they're going to be more responsive to a personal injury ad. Not that folks that have upper income don't use personal injury lawyers. Of course they do, but they probably have somebody that they know at their club that they can get a referral to, as opposed to a middle income or lower income person has a higher propensity.
Can you segment it by ethnicity, like African American or Greek or Chinese or whatever.
As a matter of fact, one of the things that really is fun when we work with folks that have a lot of inventory, they have ads. We can go back and look at ads that they've been running for 5 or 10 years. And to your point, we can definitely use ethnicity as well as location. So we have law firms that take advantage of, they have their core spot, and then maybe they're in front of the courthouse at, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, so I'll just use that. So if they're in Matthews or Gastonia, so that's the courthouse in Gaston County, and then the courthouse in Mecklenburg County. So the point is, you can use some local landmarks to localize the ads, and of course, people love to see local, and they want to work with local people. So there's, again, that's part of the expertise and some of the strategy in working with law firms and their agencies and figuring out, well, what do you have in inventory?
Yeah, and I think, and so to progress on, used to I was just like on 4 stations, and then cable came in, and of course that was more expensive, and you could buy zones or different things, but there was 100 channels, right? And you couldn't be on all of them, right? And so now I'm seeing the streaming, and I'm thinking that's even more diluted or set or whatever you want to call fragmented. And I don't know how many there are, but I'm sure it's about the equivalent of cable TV or whatever. But
it's hundreds.
Yeah, and so I think that's the problem, is knowing which ones to buy from. I would think. I mean, which one's going to hit the demographic that you're after. I mean, like, I know when I was buying regular TV, they would tell you like this show brings in this demographic, or we would actually look at the shows and see which demographic was. I'll just be honest with you. We were looking, just like you said, people that were middle or lower income, and we were looking for African Americans too. Not being prejudiced. I mean, it's just that was a big
marketing. Yeah,
that was 50% of our clients, and it won't 50% of the population in North Carolina. I can tell you that.
Yep.
So I knew that was a big deal, right? I mean, it just common sense. Because exactly what you said is that those people usually never have, they can't afford to have they're not in circles that they don't afford to have a personal lawyer. So my question is now, so how do you know? I mean, is there an art to this, or science, or is it just like throwing spaghetti up against the wall?
No, it's not throwing spaghetti against the wall, and that's a great question. And by the way, what you're asking is I get from a lot of folks, because with the streaming TV, the way that the ads are distributed, and this is a good segue into the audiences and the targeting that we can do, is that we're targeting the audience. And this also gets back to my earlier point about why it's important to be on all the publishers, because we don't really care as marketers if somebody watches Hulu or Tubi. We just want to make sure that we're putting our ad in front of folks that have the highest chance of being successful. So to answer your question, Ken, is what we do is we take the audience that the advertiser wants to reach, that we just discussed, if it's motor vehicle, middle income and lower, et cetera, and that ad could appear on all of the publishers. So again, we don't care about which publisher it's on. We care about the audience. Now, the thing that I'm what wanted, and we've discussed this a little bit offline, but we've added some additional tracking and measurability. Like you said, it's not spaghetti up against the wall, but we want to see, well, it's great that we can just target this audience. And we've been doing that for a number of years, but now we have the capability of measuring the engagement of folks that if they've seen your ad, again, whether it's on any of the publishers and they've come to your website, then what our system does is we can serve more ads to folks that are engaging with your website, so that not only are we reaching a specific audience across all of the publishers, but then we're also making changes to the campaign based on that viewer engagement. So if they visit your website, download a form, initiate a chat, hit a click to call button, those are all items that we can measure and show, but more importantly, we can make changes to the campaign using AI and optimization so that the advertiser gets a better result.
I tell you, one of the biggest takeaways so far is this motorcycle deal that's got my head spinning.
Okay.
I don't know. Have you done that with lawyers yet, where you actually just went after motorcycle?
All the time. Yeah, we just now it's kind of standard operating procedure in the fall. All of my guys that are up north, we pull their motorcycle ads down. Pretty hardy soul to ride a motorcycle in in New York or what have you. But yeah, actually, and again, it goes back to the creative piece, that the component of that is you need to have motorcycle creative. And if you do, then it's just standard operating procedure. We carve out a percentage of the budget and just show that to motorcycle owners.
So do you think that, a lot of people, so if you're already doing TV, then you want to apportion part of your budget for streaming, I would think. Is streaming okay alone? I mean, without doing regular TV? I mean, will it work without doing regular TV?
Yes, it will, with the caveat that it's still TV. So this is where there's tremendous amounts of targeting that we can do. We can measure the viewer engagement, but you're still pushing a message out to folks that 99% of whom don't need your services today. That's okay. Everybody knows that. No one's feelings are going to be hurt when I say that. So the answer to the question is absolutely. We have folks that are just on streaming. But again, you need to build that audience, because that first month that you send those ads out, a very, very small percentage of those folks might need your services that month. But then the next month, they're going to continue to see your ad and see your ad. And after 60 to 90 days, our law firms feel that lift. The phone starts ringing more, the conversion.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because another thing I worried about is when these lawyers tell me they try it for 60, 90 days, I don't know if that's enough anymore, because when I went on TV in 96, David, it was like instantaneously I was getting calls like the first day. I mean, I was getting traction within 90 days, man. I was killing it. I mean, really, it wasn't so saturated. It was a lot tighter,
yeah.
And what I'm seeing now is like I got one mastermind member that he decided to go in regular TV, and we were talking to the agency that was doing it. They said, "Listen, it's not like it used to be, Ken. It's going to take 12 to 18 months for you to get traction." I'm just wondering, the people or the lawyers that are trying streaming and saying it don't work, not giving enough time, because 25 years ago or however long it was, 96, however long that is, I don't know that I think I probably gave up after 6 months, to be honest.
Yeah.
But now you have to. I mean, you can't go into a market and think you're going to knock it out in the first 60, 90 days. I mean, it's going to take a year, 18 months before you really say, okay, this is working. This is what I was wanting. And I don't know if that's the same thing for streaming or not, but it just makes me wonder. I don't know the answer. Maybe you know the answer, but I don't know the answer. But I do know with regular TV, because I saw it with my own eyes, and the agency predicted it, and they were right.
And to your point, it is, viewers are much more fragmented. They have tons more options. And they're also, of course, they're on their phones. Social media takes up a lot of entertainment time, a lot of attention. And so that's it. The attention metrics that you'd alluded to or talked about a little bit before. But the bottom line is, from a time standpoint, I mean, 12 months, certainly that's a very long window. And if you don't feel something after, I mean, you should really be able to look back and do year over year analysis and see increase in leads, increase in cases. But I would say that window is from 60 to, so 2 months to 6 months, because again, it's just math. Like the audience that we're reaching, it's just, you're going to have, if you're sending out 500,000 impressions, there might be 100 people in that group that have been in an accident, and then just the math, it just grows from there.
So, and I'll ask you something else. I know you're thinking, Ken, how do you know all this stuff? I used to buy my own TV ads.
No, I know you did. I can't wait to hear this.
So another big deal with me was look at reach and frequency. And, my deal was I wanted the people to see me at least, same person to see me at least 6 to 7 times a week. And I really didn't want them to see me 10 or 11 times, because they get sick of you. It almost get pissed off with you because you're harassing them. And then the reach, of course, depends on how far out, how many households you're going to reach.
Yep.
Does that same kind of stuff work with streaming or not?
Oh, it's a critical question, and something you have a lot more control over in streaming, because look, in broadcast and linear and cable for that matter, it's one direction. You're pushing it out. However many people watch the shows, however many people watch the show. And what we're seeing, there's a company called iSpot. They do great work. They're a measurement company, both in the linear space and online. And so we have done many studies where we can see the reach and frequency, and we compare it in the same market with currently running campaigns, and we over and over we see the linear frequency continue to go up because of course the viewership is going down, so they're going to see the ads more frequently. One
Right.
of the things that we can control, and to your point, Ken, is that it used to be, the magic number was like 6 to 7 times of impressions before you would build awareness. Now that number, because our brains have gotten a little bit more scattered with all the social media, but the number now is more like 15 or 20 impressions to kind of to build that awareness. So, but again, over time. So anyway, the whole point is that what our platform does, we absolutely pay attention to that reach and frequency. We think 5 to 10 per month is the sweet spot. So we are in agreement on that. And then each month we're showing those ads to that household 5 to 10 times over the course of 4 to 6 months. They've seen the ad 50 times, and that's the sweet spot for, hey, and you know what they're going to still do, Ken? They're still going to pick up their phone. They're going to Google what? Hopefully they Google the name of the law firm. Probably not, though. What are they probably going to Google? Car accident lawyer near me. And that's where you still have to be at the bottom of the funnel. You still have to do your SEO. You still have to have a good website, but you're influencing that decision in a very positive way leading up to that search.
Yeah, because subconsciously, even if not consciously, they're going to recognize.
Yep.
If they're going to pick somebody that they recognize, whether they even know they recognize it or not. I think it's subconsciously. I've read some articles about that, and I always thought it was amazing that. I mean, I know with regular TV, I mean, it still works, but
Oh, yeah.
it costs. The cost per case is going up. I think it's going to get to a place. I don't know if it'll get like phone books. Phone books used to work, and then in like 2004, 2005, I was spending like 600,000 on phone books.
Whew.
And I was, a year, and I was spending about $1 million on TV. But my cost per case on TV back then was like $600-700, and it got to where in 2005 it was $2,600 a case.
Wow.
Which was easier to. That's a whole nother thing we can talk about on another day. Attribution was a lot easier back then than it is now because there was no internet, there was no streaming, there was no social media. And so it was either a billboard, a TV, or radio ad, basically.
Well, you bring up a really good point, because the thing about the phone book is that there was a fundamental shift in the way people look for businesses. People don't use a phone book anymore. What
No,
hasn't changed is that people still watch tons of TV. And this is also like just a fundamental point, is that the average US household watches 3 to 4 hours of TV a day. And I think sometimes that's lost because a lot of the folks that we interact with are not, I don't watch that much TV, but that's the average household does watch 3 to 4 hours. And the other really, really big shift is that there's even just 2 or 3 short years ago, a lot of the streaming TV consumption was ad free. There's only one publisher now that's ad free, and that's Apple TV. Everybody else has ad supported tiers, and those tiers are growing by leaps and bounds. So whether it's Netflix, HBO, just across the line. So the point is, people still watch TV. They still expect to see commercials while they're watching TV. And if you see the average household has 6 or 7 platforms that they're paying for, they're going to buy the ad-supported tiers, which, by the way, in the personal injury space, we want those households as well that are more price sensitive, because they're going to spend $7 for Netflix instead of 20, because they don't mind the ads. Because that $13, you do that over 3 or 4 different streaming platforms, it makes a big difference. And we see that a lot, that really high performing publishers like Hulu and Netflix, because people are buying the ad supported platforms and they're seeing those local ads and responding to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like I use YouTube, and it's on there. And they even have little things at the end where I see my name come up and it says, go here, Kenneth Harrison, do this.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's crazy. One of the last things I want to ask you is, and I think I always had arguments with people on broadcast TV, whether you just want to do kind of ads that are kind of just branding ads, brand awareness, or do you want to do more direct response? Like, I'll let you, either way, I can go first. You go first because I got my own theory, but I want to hear what you got to say first.
I'll shoot because the short answer is like everything else in marketing, it depends. And I think that you're trying to measure a bunch of different variables, and creating creative is expensive. It's hard. It's blood, sweat, and tears, both money wise and what you want to do. So I would say whatever the decision is that you make, if you want to do like a Mike Wins, a Mike Morse situation where they've leaned into branding and humor and his mom, and they've leaned into that in a really big way, stick with it. However, if you're going to be more assertive and you want more call to action, then lean into that and be authentic. Ideally, you'd like both, but again, we all have to deal with limited resources, both money and also bandwidth. So I would just say that the biggest thing, and this also ties in with our time frame, is that I think being very consistent in that messaging is important, and don't think about it as a 90-day deal. I think really 6 months. I mean, a year would be ideal, but really for 6 months, what budget can you allocate for 6 months and be consistent? And the final point though is whatever that consistency is I just am a big fan of making sure that it's your client in mind. Whatever messaging that you say, whether it's a brand message or more call to action, think about why should your client care, as opposed to we've
Yeah,
won this many cases and this type of
yeah.
thing. That,
But
so that's
it's not about you. It's about them.
it's about them and just consistent messaging.
Yeah, I think I can't remember who it was. Somebody told me a long time ago. A good copywriter says, "Do not use the words I, we, or us in any of your ads.
That's good advice.
You should use you, yours. It's all about them, not about you, because they don't really give a shit about you. They won't know what's in it for them. But I always here's my deal. I didn't have an unlimited budget, so I would do direct response. Now I think if you're Mike Morris, if you're in the like number one, two, like spending millions, like John Morgan's doing now, I think you can do just brand. I think you can and not worry about it because it's just you're doing it so much, like Coca-Cola or Pepsi Cola. You know, I think when you got that kind of budget or McDonald's, I don't think it really you have to do direct response. But most lawyers don't have that kind of budget. And so I think you can do both at the same time. You can do the direct response with the call to action. I mean, everything I had, every commercial I ever did in my life, I would say, don't delay, call today. Pick up the phone, call now. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the call and the advice are free. Call now. What you got to lose? I always pushed them, tell them what to do, but I was still getting my name out there because it was all broadcasted on the screen at the same time I was saying that, right? And the same logo and the same fonts and the same colors and the same logo. It was all the same. I was trying to build that brand, but I was also trying to get them to take action. I don't know. That was just my theory.
I wouldn't argue with that. And remember, what TV does solve, it solves the problem of sight, sound, motion, and emotion. So you can have a branding, you can combine the two. Like it's your face, it's your logo, it's your font. So that's branding, it's that consistency, and then having a specific call to action. I don't think anyone's going to be offended, especially if it's consistent. And remember, in the streaming world, is we're able to control that frequency. So you're not beating people up and barking at them every single day, telling them to call you. They're seeing you a couple times a week on average. Like that. That's what we're shooting for. So
Yeah. So what would you say are the three common pitfalls when people are allocating their streaming TV budgets? What do you think?
Yeah, I'll try to run through these quick. First thing is put too much emphasis on the CPM. I mean, that's the cost per thousand. The lower your cost per thousand, and the more impressions you get. But all impressions are not equal. I would say really the focus should be on looking at what your audience is. I'm so glad you brought up reach and frequency, having a control over that, being able to say, look, if your CPMs, and I'll just even throw this out, if you're somewhere when I say a blended CPM, this is on different tactics. So on online video and on streaming, but you should be somewhere in the 20s, I think is a reasonable CPM to shoot for, even low 30s, but it's not about CPM. It's about reaching the right audience and being able to measure your success. So number one, too much emphasis on CPM. Number two is look, work backwards from the creative that you have. So take advantage of the targeting that's available to you. If you have Spanish speaking creative, serve that to Spanish speaking households. If you have motorcycle ads, 100% when the weather's good for motorcycle riding, you should be serving those motorcycle ads. So again, use the creative to hit the audience that you want. And then the final thing is just the timing of it, Ken. I know we talked about that at length. And look, no matter what, we're never going to be able to measure the person that Google's lawyer near me and goes to your Google My Business listing and calls from that. We know that TV helps drive those calls, but it's not going to show up on a report. But what I can say is that if you allocate a budget over 4 months or 6 months, then you should be able to do year over year. You know what your leads and your cases are year over year. Those are numbers that law firms keep up with. So the final thing is just don't think of it in terms of a 30 or 60-day test. Think of it in terms of a 90 day to 6 month test. And then I think it'll be less common to hear streaming TV didn't work for me.
One last question, something I forgot. Another thing I used to look at, and I get these reports on regular broadcasts. I don't know if they're available with streaming now. I know at one time they were not. I wanted to know what my competitors were spending on all this in my market, in my DMA, demographic, whatever. Did they have anything like that for streaming?
Short answer is no. I know Kantar, there's some services that looks at media spend for linear media, but right now that ecosystem hasn't evolved. That now I will say the answer is no. Just give you a direct answer.
Yeah.
But the iSpot measurement that we do, again, for larger advertisers, and they want to see reach, frequency, and overlap between their linear campaigns and their streaming campaigns. We love to have that conversation because we can provide that information. It's not a huge expense, but it really does give that advertiser a good sense of, well, how many people just saw my linear ad? How many people just saw my streaming ad? What's the overlap? And it gives you an idea of how then to allocate those resources so that you're maximizing the ultimate goal, which is getting the cases.
So is there anything, I don't know. I used to call it posting. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yep.
Okay. Is there posting in streaming? Like if you want to explain to the listeners what posting is.
Sure. So posting says you ran this schedule and your ad, if you were getting into the weather forecast at the 6 o'clock news, then you'd have a post log that would say, we ran your ad at 6:10 going into the weather forecast or whatever the case is. So you can see when the ad would post. So in the streaming world, that doesn't exist. That there's not an apples to apples comparison. What there is, though, is that you can see it in our platform exactly which publishers you've run your ads on, and we can also show you by publisher how many folks have visited your website or downloaded a form or hit a click to call button. So we don't get the exact, and by the way, we can also show those activities with date and timestamp. So if you want to see when are people coming to your website, we have a lot of day part reporting. So it's not a post log by the show, but we do have a lot of really good data by publisher.
Yeah. And like if they sell you, I guess a show that, do you buy shows or you just buy like segments of time? Because sometimes I'll call them rotators. You can buy rotators on,
that's not a streaming thing. So that's again not an that's an apples and bananas.
Okay. But then also it would be like I buy Oprah Winfrey and they promised me 300,000 eyeballs going to be watching it. And when Nielsen comes back and they show, well, only 200,000 eyeballs showed it. I used to make them make it good, but can you do that with streaming?
Yeah, and actually because of the impression delivery, that's part of the CPU. Say, here's your CPM. This is what your promised impressions are, and we hit those promised impressions.
Yeah, and my deal was I'd give them 90%. They didn't have to be 100%, but if they would drop below 90%, they had to give me a whole new commercial.
Yeah, we're pretty much in 99, 100% delivery. That's one of the problems that streaming solves, because through the digital distribution mechanism, it works.
And you were talking about, you never know whether they saw that and then they went to the deal. I will tell you this. I've talked to a lot of SEO people, and I've asked them this question. I said, does your SEO perform better for people that are on TV? They said, absolutely. I can have two clients in the same market. If one's doing TV and one's not, and I'm doing the same things, the one that does TV is going to get more hits, going to get more views, going to get more click-throughs. So it does make a difference on you, and that goes back to my whole attribution, which is there's such a journey now that, they could see you here on a billboard and see you on streaming and see you on regular TV, hear you on radio, and then all of a sudden they get Google PI lawyer near me and you're up there and you look familiar because they've seen you 20 times, right? Or heard you 20 times.
And now we're just going to throw another layer of complexity on it. And again, we're not in the SEO business, but of course the AI results are really affecting that. It goes back to credibility. So if you show up in an AI result, somebody says, who's the best lawyer in Houston, Texas? And then Gemini comes back with the AI result at the top of the page and says, well, here are some of the best lawyers. I mean, that's really, really credible stuff. So the whole point. And then again, they're going to give you, and that, my prediction, it's not happening now, but that'll be monetized at some point. I don't know quite how Google will do that, but they will. Anyway, the point being, you need to influence that decision before they're at the bottom of the funnel. Like that's what the game is.
Okay. Well, this has been fun. I've enjoyed this. It's bringing me back to my old days when I was buying TV, which was hard work, to be honest with you. So if somebody wants to get up with you or explore this more, David, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, let me share. My name is David Klein. I can be reached at 704-564-8745. That's my direct line. Feel free to call it. And the other thing I'll throw out, Ken, you've been a great partner, and as a thank you, and we love working with Pilma, and we've worked with some of your folks. We also have an offer. Anyone that call me in the next 30 days and sets up a meeting and runs a campaign, we'll do $1,000 of free online video impressions, $1,000 of free impressions with a campaign. So as a thank you to you and Pilma, and we'd love to be able to incentivize folks to, just if nothing else, we love doing side-by-side comparisons. That's typically our approach. And then from there, we'll put together a specific recommendation. And I'd like to make that offer as well.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have I don't know when this is going to air, but it's like we're about a week before Christmas. And I hope you have a happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And
happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Yeah, and I'll see you. If I don't see you before, I know I'll see you at the summit.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. You take care.
Take care.
Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.